What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you so much for tuning in to Right Cycle Works. I was outside cleaning up the 500 and I realized, you know what, I've never really done a walk around review of this bike. So let me show you and take you through it and show why I think this is the greatest light adventure bike that you can buy today. Let's talk about it. You know, if you follow the channel, you know that we do a podcast called Tall Boys and Track Masters. Make sure you guys check that out. And we always say on there that, you know, the ultimate unicorn motorcycle and dual sport bike, if it was out there, we would all buy it and we would all own it, because no bike does everything completely perfect and well how we want. Well, I'm here to tell you that adventurizing a light dual sport bike is probably about as close as you're going to get to that unicorn motorcycle. You know, CRF 450Ls, this 500 EXC, the betas. There's lots of bikes out there that you can adventurize and make a lot better for what you want to do, but there is always going to be compromises. You know, this thing, I love it. It's an absolute deadly weapon on the trails. The only place that it really suffers is on the highways. So what we have is a 2015 KTM 500 EXC. So about 3 years ago, I drank the orange Kool-Aid, so to speak. I had an XR650R that I was dual sporting and loved that thing to death. Still love that thing. But it was kind of getting a little bit long in the tooth, and to be honest with you, parts were starting to become really, really hard to find. When you have a motorcycle that was only produced for 7 years, it's pretty rare to begin with. You know, a lot of aftermarket companies just kind of went by the wayside as far as making, you know, regular parts for it. Wheel bearings, swing arm bearings, rebuild kits, what have you. And I needed something to kind of get myself up into the 21st century a little bit. And a really good buddy of mine, Aaron Johnson, had this thing for sale, and I kind of knew that I had to upgrade, and it was time to go to the dark side, as my mom would say, and get a KTM 500. This thing has, I think it's right at 6,000 some miles now. Let's take a look. 6,902 miles to be exact. So almost 7,000 miles. I know that it had a top end done, timing chain, piston rings, valves were all okay and everything at roughly 3,900 miles, and it really didn't need it at the time. The timing chain was making a little bit of noise, and the guy that had it before me decided to just go ahead and freshen it up while it was apart. The 2015 EXCs were the last generation where you didn't have all of the emissions BS on them. So a lot of people consider this generation to be the greatest one, simply because it was really good out of the box. Now, it still took mods very well, just like any of the other 500 EXCs or 350 EXCs. But this generation here was kind of the cherry on the top. So what have I experienced owning the KTM? I've had this thing for 3 years now. I've taken it on multiple multi-day rides, use it all the time to lay out our 304 Detour dual sport ride that we do. You know, done the Tour to Coalfields, Flint Ridge dual sport ride, Shenandoah 500, multiple trips down to Brandywine. You know, we're talking multiple hardcore, you know, moto camping, just what you would expect out of a regular dual sport and adventure motorcycle. The only issue that I've had out of this thing was earlier this year we were down at Hatfield McCoy, and the shift shaft, where the shifter goes through the engine case and connects over to the shift drum, the factory weld inside there actually broke off, so I was stuck in third gear. That's the only issue I've ever had out of this thing. I didn't have to split the cases to fix it. The parts were cheap. I think it was like $65 for a new shift shaft. You know, had it in, had to pull the clutch out. That was the biggest deal I've ever had to do with the thing. Tires, oil changes, I subscribe to our really good buddy Fred Miller's motto when it comes to oil changes. He's got a 2017 or 18 500 EXC that has over 10,000 miles on it. He changes the oil when it gets dirty. That's what I do too. So you might get 900 miles out of an oil change, you might get 2,000 miles out of an oil change. Just depends on how you're riding it. But as soon as I see that it's completely discolored, that's when I change it. I've had zero issues with that so far. Let's go over this thing from front to back, all the accessories that are on it, and what helps me make this thing the awesome bike that I think it is personally. Let's start at the front. We'll work our way back. So Tusk impact wheels, front and rear. Currently has a 21-inch Tusk crossbite front tire. I do have a Trackmaster in there ready to go. What do I run as far as tubes or bibs? I've got a bib in the front and I've got a regular heavy-duty tube in the back. I've found that if you try to run a bib on the rear, it heats up too fast, tends to come apart. I've had that front bib in there for like a riding season and a half and have had zero issues with it. Every tire change, I just lube it up again and I'm ready to go. The front suspension was set up for the guy before me. Luckily, he weighs the same as I do, so it's got a little bit of revalving, spring set for my weight. It was done by MDK Motorsports, so I weigh 210 pounds. It was set up for a guy that was 215. That's close enough. Haven't really played with the clickers a whole lot. I did have to put fork seals in it last year. If you guys have a KTM or any of these Euro bikes and you're getting ready to do fork seals, make sure you buy the dual compound SKFs. Don't cheap out and buy anything else because they're just going to leak. Getting back to the front of the bike, and I'll link all the stuff that I bought if it was from Amazon or anywhere else in the video below. This is just a cheapy Amazon LED headlight. It is super bright. It's poor man's Baja Designs, but it gets the job done. It's great at nighttime. This windscreen, which unfortunately isn't available anymore, I got off Amazon. It really does keep the wind off of your chest. So if you do have to do some longer highway jaunts, it doesn't fatigue you as much. This thing did come with the Zeta handguards with the blinkers in the handguard. I like that. You don't have the blinkers down, you know, off of the headlight mask or off the forks where it can, if you fall down and break them off, you know, kind of pain in the butt. Had zero issues with those Zetas. Cycler Pro bins. We have a lot of Taco Moto parts on this thing. So Taco Moto radiator guards, front on both sides, obviously. P3 carbon skid plate. I'm a fan of it. It does. I've had to redo the mounting crossbar on it because it got wore out. This is one of those things. But P3 is actually here in West Virginia, and like supporting local businesses when I can. Let's move on to the back of the bike. Again, got a Tusk impact wheel set. Have a Taco Moto chain guide set up. I believe that's a cheapy Parts Unlimited chain, which I've had really good luck with. No issues with that. Got a Trackmaster rear, set stock heavy duty tube. It does have a sick ass racing tail tidy. I'm not a huge fan of this, just simply because the blinkers are really tucked in there, which is good for not breaking them off, but it is kind of hard to see if you're behind me, unless it's, you know, dark or something like that, then you can kind of get a better idea of it. Let's go over the controls. So Pro Taper Windham bars. I found that these are really wide and give you a lot of options as far as mounting accessories on. It's one thing that you'll find on a dual sport or ADV bike is moto bars don't tend to work just simply because you run out of room to mount all your controls and everything. Sick ass racing blinker and headlight switch. You know, obviously hydraulic clutch. Double take mirror. I run one on the left hand side. I find that suffices. This is something that I've been working on, hopefully offering you guys in the future. This is a nice CNC or Amazon branded Rally roadbook holder. Gives you basically a GPS mount on your bike. I run my quad lock on that. Super excited about that. I can mount the phone there. I use Gaia as a GPS navigator. No issues with that. Pro Taper pillow top grips, which have seen better days. Probably need to invest in a set of those. Enduro Engineering tall gel seat. This thing did have a Seat Concepts standard seat, but it was kind of the race one, so it had the ribs that were going across right here in this area. If you're a male, you know why I probably took that off. Didn't really like it for long dual sport rides. Wasn't a huge fan. Let's go over any of the engine mods. This thing does have a Recluse clutch. Now, this was in it when I bought it. I am not a fan of Recluse clutches, and as soon as this thing needs to be replaced or the plates wear out, I'm going to go back to a stock clutch. The Recluse has its places, but I'm not one of those guys. I like the feel of a normal clutch. I mean, yeah, it's nice sometimes, but not being able to hold it very well on an uphill, that's one of the downsides that I see, and I find myself in that situation a lot. So probably going to be yanking that back out of there. It does have an FMF 4.1 titanium exhaust. Stock header. I do have a power bomb header in a box for this thing, but haven't really ever just felt the need to put that on. It's got plenty of power. It's got a Tokyo Mods ECU, so full mode, bud. Full get on as fast as you want. It's got power for days. No complaints in that department. Does have the Samco silicone hoses. I mean, other than that, the motor's pretty well stock. I mean, it's a beast. It's uncorked, so it'll get you where you want to go quickly. Let's talk about dual sport specific things. So first off, need a little more fuel range, especially in our area. Got the Acerby's 4.3 gallon tank. If I ride like I have sense, I can get about 210 miles out of that tank. If I ride like I normally do, looking at about 185, 190 miles before the fuel light comes on and I'm stopping for gas. But, you know, huge improvement over the stock tank as far as range. I don't really feel the weight is really that bad whenever it's full, so no issues there. Right now, this thing is set up for going and setting up all of our private property sections, so I need all the storage I can get for our little Milwaukee chainsaw, staple guns, arrows. I do usually just run the tank bag and the fender bag. This is all Nelson rig stuff. Really shout out to Kyle Bradshaw Mini Bikes, for those of you who know, for hooking me up for a lot of Nelson rig stuff. Great guy, great company, and I will rock their stuff all the time. Got the cheapy soft saddle bags. They're okay. Like I said, it's something, if I'm doing like a multi-day ride and I need more storage, I'll put on there. Love the tank bag. I can put my staple gun and my arrows right there in the tank bag. That is one thing that's a positive about the Recluse, is this thing is an absolute weapon when it comes to laying out trail and putting arrows up, because you can just keep the bike running, unzip that tank bag, pull my staple gun arrows out, put them up. I don't have to shut the bike off. I can leave it in gear and just take off and go. Tail bag, pretty good. I usually stuff my 18-inch tube in there, some other spare stuff. Tool bag usually goes on the left-hand side, and any snacks or clothes or anything I need goes on the right-hand side to kind of balance it out. Hope you guys like this bike. I am a huge fan of it. I'll probably never get rid of this thing. It does absolutely everything I want except long highway jaunts, but it's not what this thing was designed for. And I hope that you guys can post up and tell me about your lightweight adventure setup that you have. Love to hear what you got, you know, KTM 690s and other brands. But I'm a sucker for this generation KTM. It's easy to work on. It does everything that I ask of it. Parts are fairly cheap. You know, that moniker of, you know, the stigma of KTMs and breaking down all the time and parts being expensive. I don't find that at all on this bike. This is my first KTM I've ever owned in my 33 years of riding and working on motorcycles. No issues with this thing, man. I would recommend a 500 EXC this generation to anybody out there. Do some mods to it like I've got it set up. You'll find that it works very well for 90% of what you're going to encounter out there on dual sport and adventure riding. Well, that's going to do it for me and the 500 EXC. I'm going to throw some brake pads on the back of that thing and get it ready to go for the 304 detour coming up. Hope to see you all there. And as always, please hit that like and share and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. We'll see you next time.